Welcome back, episode 22 of the Q Review, brought to you by Barely's House of Blues and Ribs. As always, with me today is Theo Iatra, as always. What's up, Theo?
This is it, man. Start of the playoffs. We're all ready to go. We got Sean Crocker. I'll let you do the introduction, but yeah, I'm excited.
As Theo said, we got Sean Crocker, who was on one of our episodes, editor at Area 51 Sports Network. Sean, how's it going?
Not too bad, guys. I'm super excited to be here today and talk about the playoffs with you guys. It's a pretty exciting time of year for this too, and I'm just excited to just talk about this kind of stuff. It's not every day you get to have an episode like this.
Absolutely.
68 games down for every single team, which means it's the start of the playoffs, the most exciting time of year as everyone chases the Gilles Coutreau Trophy, the new President's Trophy, as well as the Memorial Cup. So we better get right into it. So we have all our matchups set. Playoffs will start on Friday, March 31st. And first series I want to talk about, we're going to start with the Western Conference. Sherbrooke, the number 1 seed, against Blainville, the number 8. Sherbrooke took the season series 4-0. Leading scorers, Jacob Melanson from Sherbrooke with 99 points. And for Blainville, you got Jonathan Fauchon, 65 points. Before we get into predictions, we'll start with you, Sean. Who do you think gets the first game for Blainville? Charles Edward Gravel or Nick Sheehan?
I think it's got to be Gravel. He's got the he's sort of leading up to it. To me, he was the stronger option there, and I think going into the playoffs, you don't really have time to waste just on trying to shuffle it. You have a maximum of 7 games in a series, and if you don't get it going quick, then it's going to end pretty soon. So he's my pick. Theo,
who do you got?
I got the same thing. You got to start with the veteran. Just good in between the pipes. Yeah, as a veteran leader, you kind of have him at the start.
Okay, so I've got Sherbrooke 4-1, so 5 games. Theo?
I got the same as well. Just too much of a powerhouse against Blainville, and yeah.
And Sean?
Yeah, and I got Sherbrooke in 4. I just don't see a way that Blainville finds a way to do it, because in the early part of the season they still had guys like Josh Lawrence and they sold a lot of those guys off. So like you guys mentioned, Sherbrooke is a powerhouse team, and I just personally don't see a way how Blainville takes one. I guess it's the playoffs; anything can happen, but I think Sherbrooke in 4.
I guess it was my thinking that Blainville might get one at home. I've seen a few of those games, and the home crowd's pretty electric, so I think they might steal one at home, maybe game 3. But other than that, I think Sherbrooke walks all over them.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we got Gatineau, number 2 seed versus St. John, number 7. Anyone that's confused, Sherbrooke took the tiebreak against Gatineau. They both finished with the same amount of points, but with the wins, regulation and overtime wins percentage, Sherbrooke took the tiebreak. So Gatineau will play St. John. Season series was 1-1. St. John had a 6-5 win early in the season, and then Gatineau decided to trade for every single person that was available during the trade deadline. And then I believe they beat them 11-3. So your leading scorers, Tristan Leno, 83 points for Gatineau. Very impressive for a defenseman. And friend of the show, Brady Burns, leads with 71 points for the Sea Dogs. Theo, who do you have in this series?
I have the same with Gatineau in 5. Just with Francesco Lapena, just an absolute one of the best goalies in the queue. Can't really stop him. Big goalie for sure, and all, like you just mentioned, all the players, Kidney, Savoie, and all those guys. I think St. John might steal one. Just like as we watched last year, them winning the Memorial Cup, the fan base that they have, the building, I think they could pull it off with at least 1 win, but I got Gatineau in 5.
Sean, who you got?
Gatineau in 4, and it's really, for me, it comes down to the fact that Gatineau is by far and away the hottest team in the queue right now. I know that Chris and we talked about that, and before the show here, just how Gatineau went on that ridiculous run. What are they, 23-1 since January 16th or something like that. I just think a team that's that hot, they're getting hot at the right time. They're peaking right now. And, St. John, and even though I don't think anyone was nearly as bad as the Acadie Bathurst Titan, I think St. John's probably in that same tier. And so sorry to St. John fans out there, but hey, you guys won last year, so
Yeah,
you know what?
They had their fun last year.
Take a breather.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just surprised that St. John didn't sell off more pieces. I mean, when I talked to Brady Burns in our interview, he said that like the 20-year-old market was pretty well spoken for by the time they were thinking about trading him. You could trade guys like Pete Reynolds, Charlie DeRoche. They were all there. So I don't know. I don't think they'll win a game in this series personally, but hey, you never know. Like Sean said, anything can happen in the playoffs. We'll start with you, Sean. Who do you think is going to be the biggest X factor for Gatineau in this series?
Well, I think it's got to be Riley Kidney. He's been dynamite since they acquired him, and he just continues to put points up on the board at just like a ridiculous rate too. And I think like Theo said about Francesco Lapenna, like I think he's going to be an X factor in the long run here. But I think in this series, I think if St. John can't stop a guy like Riley Kidney, then you're not going to go very far because he's going to absolutely torch them. And if they're not able to contain him. So realistically, I think he's going to be the guy to look out for here to put up some points and really sort of take them off the ground here. And I think that he's going to be a really big factor in whether or not this series goes either 4 or even if it goes to 5 or 6.
Theo?
This might not be an X factor, but I got Cam McDonald facing his former team, St. John. He's been pretty fired up as of late, putting up points. And yeah, like I said, not much of an X factor, but people are looking at all the coaches are writing up about facing Kidney, how to defend him. But I think Cam can steal a couple points and help Gatineau out for sure.
I'd actually just like to make a really good point of it. Like I think that's an excellent point, Theo, because it's also the revenge factor for Cam McDonald, but also like I think at this time of year, you can say your stars are going to be your X factor, but it's really the depth that takes you the distance. And I think getting a guy like Cam McDonald allows them to do that, where Kidney's going to be the guy they're going to be watching a lot of game tape on, just trying to figure out how to stop him. But then you tend to forget about all these other pieces that play further down the lineup.
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to say Gatineau's only lost 1 game since I started working for them.
Throw
that out there. But fun fact, that game that was 6-5 for the Sea Dogs, Cam McDonald actually scored a hat trick. So I guess Gatineau just said, let's take this guy.
Never know.
I had Gatineau
if
sweeping.
You can't beat him, get him, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had Gatineau sweeping.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how St. Charles could pull a 1 game at least, but I got faith. I got faith in the boys for sure.
All right. Next series up. Number 3, Victoriaville will take on number 6, Drummondville. Victoriaville took the season series 4-3, but Drummondville took the most recent game 4-0. Leading scorers for the Tigre are Max Pellerin with 86 and Xavier Fortin for Drummondville with 63. Not far behind with 62 is Luke Woodworth, friend of the show. And another goaltending question. Theo, who's going to start for Drummondville, Riley Mercer or Jacob Gooby?
I think you got to go Riley Mercer. This is could be a hot take. Jacob Gooby, also a local guy here in Nova Scotia, just been playing awesome as of late too. But I think you got to go with Riley on this one.
And Sean?
I think I'm going to go with Gooby. He's been playing fantastic here down the stretch, and again, I don't think that you can really it's the time of year when whether you're playing in real life, you're playing fantasy, you're playing whatever, it doesn't matter what you do all season long. It comes down to right now, and you got to put the guy in that gives you best chance to win, and I think that might be Gooby.
Oh, that's a good take for sure.
Not a bad problem to have for Drummondville at all in case one of them goes down, right? So, I mean, not a bad problem to have.
Yeah.
All right. Who do we got, Sean?
I have Drummondville in 7. Now, I think that might be a little bit of a hot take, but here's why. So, Victoriaville has a wide advantage here when it comes to special teams, and I think when I sort of looked at it, Victoriaville is a heavily penalized team, and I know that these are the kinds of things that can go away when we enter the playoffs, but I think for a team like the Voltigeurs at 5-on-5, who can sort of bump and grind away with the game with guys like Lamoureux and Tyler Peddle, like the guys who hit, they can really wear you down throughout a series. And I think it's really going to come down to if the Tigres can stay out of the box, because and we, like, it's easy to remember that Drummondville actually won the season series 4-3. So they're a team that we know can beat Victoriaville. But I think the X factors here for Drummondville, it definitely comes down to Peddle and Lamoureux. Can they slow the game down, and can they bring it down to sort of a pace that works for them, and really one where they can sort of scan the ice better? And because Victoriaville, I don't know if they're going to be able to sort of adapt to that style of game. It's a team that likes to score, but Drummondville's just one of those teams that come playoff time, they can find a way to win, which is probably your most valuable asset at this time of year.
So I must have read that wrong, but I thought Victoriaville took the season series 4-3, but maybe
I might have read that wrong too. I was just sort of counting up off the schedules there, but.
So Theo, before you make your guess, I'm going to say I also had Drummondville in 7.
Yeah, I did as well.
Okay, here's why. So basically, first half of the year, Drummondville didn't have Justin Cote, Riley Mercer, Maverick Lamoureux. This team is very, very good. Okay, and you mentioned the penalties thing, Sean. Drummondville is also very heavily penalized compared to some teams in the league. And so playoffs comes around, there's not as many penalties. So, you're not killing as many penalties. So I think Drummondville's really going to thrive in this playoff. They got everyone back. The whole gang's back together. Drummondville in 7. Theo?
I just think the biggest factor is the goaltending. I think, like what we mentioned before, 2 big goaltenders on Drummondville, and I think that's going to seal the deal and bring them to 7 games. Just with Luke Woodworth, good veteran, and all around Maverick Lamoureux, that first line is just incredible, and I think it beats Victoria's first line. So yeah, I got them in 7.
And a common theme that, like, I kind of like to bring up here is so now, like, I always ask, so now, like, when you're thinking in the context of the NHL, for example, would you rather be a team that wins in 4 and goes into the next round rested, or would you rather go to 7, have a hard fought series, and like sort of have that momentum coming in? And I think that's relevant to this, because Drummondville's kind of had to scratch and claw for seeding, where Victoriaville's been sort of one of the top teams for the majority of the season. So they haven't really had to sort of fight for their keep in this kind of, in that sense. So, I think Drummondville might just be a little more battle tested, and that's kind of why I chose them in 7, but just something to consider. I don't know what you guys think of that.
No,
one thing that I just thought about is that, Victoriaville has statistically the best goalie in the league with Nathan Darvaux. However, if you can get under Nathan Darvaux and you can score on him, you know who you bring in? The 16-year-old Gabe Dagla.
That's what I mean. It's
not a great protective layer.
Yeah.
No, Drummondville, not saying, Gabe's a bad goalie. Just coming into the league at 15 is hard enough, let alone playing in a very, very loud Drummondville barn at 16 years old is not easy for anyone.
Very compact.
It could be one of the factors if they could chase Darvaux in one of the games.
Yeah.
All right. So everyone had Drummondville in 7. The next series is also a very interesting one. 4-5. So Rouyn-Noranda and Shawinigan. Rouyn-Noranda took the season series 3-2. Tristan Allard leading scorer with 77 points for Rouyn. And former Moosehead Stefan Huard Jr. with 60 points for Shawinigan. And Theo, who do you have?
Yeah, see, this was the toughest one for because I'm not a huge, I don't follow these 2 teams a whole lot. So, but if I did have to say, I would choose Rouyn. It could be a hot take. But Shawinigan, as we know, had a terrific year last year. And I think they lost a lot of key players. And I think Rouyn could step it up this year for sure.
Sean?
I have Shawinigan in 7, and like, it's kind of the thing that we brought up with Drummondville. Like, it's a team that's sort of had to fight for positioning there, but like Shawinigan does have some pretty key pieces returning to their lineup from their run last year, and despite not having Bourgault this time around, I think it's going to be a team that is going to need to find different ways to win than they did last year. Now, I think having a guy like Angus Booth on the back end, like I think he's a really good little piece to have to sort of calm the game down. But they also have Jordan Turgney back there, and again Stefan Huard Jr. So you do have a little bit of experience, and I think when the games get tight, I might sound like an old hockey head for saying this, but like I take the experienced guys who have sort of been there before, like over a team that hasn't really in recent years, like because I don't think any of the guys remaining on the team now in Ruan Noranda would have been on the team there in 2019.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
So
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, so I mean, I just think it's an experience over like I do think Ruan Noranda is the better team, and I think that Theo was very justified in taking them. But I do think, I don't know, like I might be overvaluing the experience here, but I do think that does mean something when the games tighten up.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think people forget that the Shawinigan goaltender Antoine Colombe led the team to a President's Cup last year. So, he's back, he's motivated. And another question for Rouen is, can Bill Zonin turn it up? Can all those young guys turn it up? Can Tristan O'Ard stay hot? Can Daniil Borosh keep scoring?
Leighton Crothers is a big one as well, too.
And Leighton Crothers finally get things going, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of ifs with Rouen. I just like, I like how they're structured at forward pretty well.
Yeah.
So that's it for the West. So all of us, I believe, had the same, except Sean had Shawinigan over Rouen. Moving to the Eastern Conference. If all three of us don't get this one, I'm going to be very disappointed in our knowledge of the Q. Quebec versus Charlottetown 1-8. Quebec took season series 2-0. However, one of them was an overtime win. And leading scorers, Zach Bolduc, 110 points for Quebec. And with more than half of that is Giovanni Morneau with 51 points for the Charlottetown Islanders. Sean, who's winning this series?
Not even a question in my mind. Do I even need to say it? Quebec in 4.
Yo?
Yeah, no explanation. Quebec in 4 for sure.
Okay, perfect. So that's it for the show.
Well, see you guys later.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, no.
I think it's, like I do feel bad, like when you go and pick a team to win in 4, you almost feel bad, like when you're doing the March Madness brackets and you're just picking like the higher seed every time. Like it feels bad because somewhere down the line, like there's only going to be one team standing at the end, and there's bound to be upsets along the way. Yeah. But I do think that there is a very narrow path for Charlottetown to find a way to do this. There have been bigger upsets now, but that being said, they'll basically need guys like Brabenich and Trudeau to come in and play out of their absolute minds to do it. But I do think that there is a small path to even take a game or two, and then you have a series. But I don't know. I do think Quebec is the kind of team that can just sort of, like, when it starts to get out of their control, they could find a way to get it back, and I don't think Charlottetown has that ability.
Well, you mentioned Brabenich, Sean. Actually, he got traded to Sherbrooke, so I mean they're even worse off.
Oh, he did, didn't he? Crap.
So, and then also a big loss for them. Will Trudeau didn't end up coming back. So they have way less. When we did the season preview, we had Charlottetown finishing a lot higher. Because when we did the preview, that was before Pat Gay got traded. Will Trudeau was still on the team. They had Brabenich. So yeah, they lost a lot of weapons. And like you said, upsets exist, obviously. We saw it in March Madness a few weeks ago. But I just don't think Charlottetown is the team to do it.
Yeah, especially in 7 games or 4 games or whatever. But yeah.
And Theo, who's your
what did you say? Sorry,
you have Quebec, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I said it's clean sweep for sure.
Okay, yeah, and let's not forget that Quebec has an 18,000 seat stadium that Charlottetown has to play 2 games in at least.
Yeah, so, could be a rough battle for them, but you never know.
Didn't mean to call you out, Sean. I just didn't want your take to be.
No, that's absolutely fair. And you know what? I feel like no one pays attention to Charlottetown. Like, and it's like I try to keep in the loop here with a lot of the maritime teams, But I find Charlottetown is just one you never see news on. So I guess like that kind of got lost in the fray for me there. But
no, I
no. I appreciate you calling me out on that. I mean,
well, I think Trudeau was like a surprise. Trudeau was a surprise making of the Montreal Coast team. So I don't think he was like projected to make it, but that's one that it could have easily got lost. All right, moving on. Judging by his hat, I think we know who Sean's going to pick on this next series. Number 2 Halifax playing number 7 Cape Breton. Battle of Nova Scotia. First time since 2008. You know who was on the team in 2008? Halifax.
Who's that?
Jacob Voracek.
Oh.
Brad Marchand.
Oof.
So It's been a while since these two have played in the playoffs. Halifax won the season series 6-3. One of those wins was in OT, first game of the season. Jordan Dumais, 140 points, led the Mooseheads and the league. And Ivan, 90 points. So, Ivan had an underrated season. First question, Theo. Nick Rucha or Oliver Shatney for the Eagles?
I think it's clear Oliver Shatney. I think he's leading shutouts this year. Am I wrong? Or up there?
He's got 3 shutouts. He's 3 behind Patrick Hammerla.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's clear going with him. He's been having a terrific year and all throughout. Yeah.
And Sean?
Yeah, I think Shatney, he was a guy that they went and traded for. So, I do think that, well, like, you do kind of have to go with the guy that gives you the best chance to win. But I think that there was a reason they traded for Shatney, and he's been pretty much everything that's been promised. So I think it has to be him.
Now think about this. Halifax and Cape Breton played last week, and Cape Breton won 2-1 off 30 saves from Nick Rucha. So does that factor into your guys' choice at all?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay. And Sean, what do you got for the series?
Well, so I think my official prediction is Halifax in 6. Now, I don't think that they're going to walk all over this Cape Breton team. It's a team that's played them very well all season. Cape Breton got blown out by Halifax a few times, but the games that Cape Breton won, they either went to overtime, they ended within 1 or 2 goals, maybe an empty netter. Now, the thing is that they're 2-2 in those overtime games, and we know that playoff games can sort of trend in that direction of sort of turning into those grimy and grindy contests. Now, the Eagles, they're outmatched in pretty much every category here, forward, defense, and I would argue goaltending. But I think there is a path here for the Eagles. They're going to have to muck the game up, and they're going to have to find ways to essentially upgrade on the fly in terms of how you're covering guys like Dumais, Doucette, and that ridiculous depth. Because when I was writing my preview there for Area 51, I pretty much finished this one, and then I was like, crap, I didn't even mention Zach Leroux. Like.
Yeah.
It's such a deep team. And again, like, I think if they can find a way to sort of grease up the wheels there against a team that can easily outscore you, and I think if they stay out of the box and keep it at 5-on-5, they can easily do that. But, I think Halifax is just too powerful. And so I think them in 6, but I think there is the chance it goes to 7.
Now, if you're the Mooseheads, do you put Doucette, Lawrence, and Dumais on 3 separate lines?
I think. See, I wouldn't be opposed to having 2 of them on one line. So think like you're rolling with Dumais and Doucette, and then I forget who the other third wheel was. So sort of there, you could even move a guy like Zach Leroux up there to sort of add a bit of bump and grind to that. But I think that you kind of want to you don't want to burn that too early, because that's kind of your nuclear option for if the series starts to get closer, it gets out of hand. You kind of have that option to sort of say, hey, we're going to throw this at them, something that they haven't had to deal with all series. And for a Cape Breton team, the 7 seed, it's going to be hard to adapt to that on the fly. So it's just kind of nice to keep that in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Okay, Theo, who do you have in this series?
I got Halifax in 6 as well. I think Oliver Shatney can steal a couple games, maybe at home, but I think we're forgetting Rousseau. Rousseau's also having a terrific year, just like what Sean was saying, just Halifax such a deep team, and I don't want to be biased, but I do have them winning the whole President's Cup. And yeah.
Okay. I also had Halifax in 6. So Moncton, number 3 seed, taking on Bay Camo, number 6. Season series tied at 1. Leading scorers, you got Charles Baudouin and Etienne Morin with 72 points for Moncton, and Matthias Milovsky, 58 points for Bay Camo. Very good rookie season by Milovsky. First question I want to ask, we'll go with Theo first. Is Jacob Steinman's recent stretch enough to get Moncton kind of far?
I think so. We've been, as we know, Chris, we've been mentioning him almost every pod. Maybe he's getting the Q review bump. I don't know, not a guest yet, but we keep talking about him, and he's just playing better and better. And I think for sure, that's why I don't know, you didn't ask yet, but that's why I got Moncton in 5.
And Sean, do you think Steinman will be enough?
I think he'll be enough. I think it will be enough and then some, but I think Bakemo's going to pose a challenge, I think. Now, it's funny because when I was looking up for the special team stats, they're right neck and neck in both penalty kill and power play. Now, I think the thing is that Etienne Morin, he has to be the best player in this series if Moncton's going to advance here. He has to be ready to be engaged physically. We've seen sometimes he backs down from that, but this season he's really taken a step forward in his physicality. But I just think that it's one of those series that it could really go either way. I think Nick Svanenko has to be a factor. But series like this are incredibly hard to predict. They only played twice a year, so you don't really have an idea sort of for how these two teams are going to match up. And I think that that's kind of what brings the intrigue. So I think Moncton has the edge here. It's a team that can score. Bay Camo has struggled to score at times. So I think that's ultimately going to be the difference. When the games tighten up, I think Moncton's going to have to find a way to score those big goals. And I think they can. And, I think that that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. If it goes to 7, then a goal or two is going to be the difference, and Moncton definitely has the ability to find that.
Yeah.
And who do you have, Sean?
I have Moncton in 7. So I have that one going the distance.
Well, I had 6 as well. So 6, 6, and 7.
Well, and we talked about the Avenir Center too.
Yeah.
It's a very intimate atmosphere there, because it's all kind of like one level, kind of like spliced off. It's a really neat structured building, so it doesn't feel like you're in a massive NHL rink, but it feels like a very compact environment, and one that can almost make you feel claustrophobic if you're a visiting team.
Yeah.
All right. And I think this is going to be the closest series of the playoffs. 4 Chicoutimi versus 5 Rimouski. Season series tied at 4. Leading scorers, Andre Lofsko for Chicoutimi with 70 points. And William Dumoulin for Rimouski with 58. Like I said, potentially a best first round matchup. You got Patrick Hammerla. He leads the queue in shutouts with 6. Charles-Antoine Lavallée has 29 of the Saguenay's 33 wins this season. So he essentially has led the team to the playoffs and home ice advantage. Sean, who's going to win this series?
I actually think this one's going to be quicker than we think. I think it's going to end in 5 in favor of Chicoutimi. Now, my reasoning being, I think Rimouski's been penalized pretty tough at some points in time. Chicoutimi's power play is ranked 5th, while Rimouski's is second last. They're neck and neck in the penalty kill, so really it's going to be if Chicoutimi can solve that penalty kill, I think they're going to cruise, and I think that they could find a way to win a few games early, and that just really, it's demoralizing, and it could put Rimouski in a pretty big hole early.
Yeah, even though Rimouski's got Olivier Adam as a backup, maybe, who knows? They got goaltending, but I think Chicoutimi takes it for sure. Just the veteran leadership they have with everybody in their defense. What's that?
You mean Hammerla?
Yeah, sorry, Hammerla. Yeah.
I think so. I have Chicoutimi in 7 only because, like we said, William Dumoulin, 58 points, is the leading scorer on this Rimouski team. So if they're going to win, they're going to rely on Patrick Hammerla and grinding it out. I'm thinking New York Islanders hockey. boring. They're going to grind down Chicoutimi.
Snooze fest.
It's going to be, I think this series will be, it will go the distance, but I think it's going to be 7 very boring games.
Yeah, well, and I think that it's kind of similar to the Drummondville Victoria one that we talked. Like, I think that this is Drummondville Victoria light.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's going to be one where the lower seed team is going to have to find a way to slow it down and just sort of be able to process the game at their speed, because if it picks up in pace, then they might get in some pretty deep trouble there early. So, and like you said, Chris, like they're going to have to rely on those two guys pretty much. So like they're really going to have to figure out a way to keep the games 2-1, 3-2, as opposed to the score getting run up, because I don't think that Rimouski will be able to keep pace.
No offense to the Oceanic, but as soon as they traded Freddie Boudet, I thought the season was over. And the fact that they're still in 5th place is very impressive, personally. Also, I was just going to say, like, the only reason I would argue saying it's like the Drummondville series, Drummondville has a lot more weapons than Rimouski has, way more. Like,
well, and I think like it's kind of like Drummondville has more weapons. I think Victoriaville is really just like kind of like the ceiling that I think Chicoutimi wants to be at.
Yeah.
Or what they can be at. And so I think that it's really just 2 downgraded versions of those teams. So I think you're going to see a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Well, let's not all forget Victoriaville wasn't even supposed to really contend this year.
Yeah.
Like, they were first in the queue at one point. So they, I don't think it would surprise anyone if they lost in the first round, just because like we said, they weren't supposed to contend. They're not ready to contend, I don't think.
Really? They almost seem like they're running out of steam.
Yeah, well, they're out of the top 10, CHL top 10.
Yeah.
I was looking at that today. They were up there like 3-4. The only player remaining from that President Cup team, I believe, is Max Pellerin. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So that's it for the first round. So we have Sean saying 5 games. I said 7, and Theo, you as well said 7.
Yeah.
For Chicoutimi.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if we move on to round 2, we all had the same choices except Sean said Shawinigan. So that would place Sherbrooke against Drummondville, 1-6. And Gatineau against Rouyn-Noranda, but for your case, Sean, it would be Shawinigan.
Yep.
So, Theo, I'm going to ask you first, who wins, Sherbrooke or Drummondville?
Well, I think this one kind of goes a little longer than what people expect. I got Sherbrooke in 6. I don't think they're going to sweep. As we just mentioned, Drummondville not really supposed to be there, but so it's kind of like reminds me of Montreal in the when they made it to the finals. Like, not really supposed to be there, but they have the heart and going down with the fight. But I think Joshua and Sherbrooke kind of take it in 6.
Sean?
I actually have Sherbrooke in 5. Now, I think that Victoriaville series is going to go long, and like I know I said earlier, you kind of want to take your battle-tested team over a team that's rested, but I do think that there is something to. I think Drummondville might come out of that series limping a little bit, but like. And I think with Sherbrooke, you get past the top guys like Gil Waugh, who am I missing? Melanson, and like you get past that first layer, you still got to deal with the guys like Ethan Gauthier, and I think that is just a lineup with such depth, and I think Drummondville's a little too top heavy in the top part of their lineup to sort of contend with that kind of depth. Now, again, I think Drummondville might. Be ready to take a step next year, but I think that this is one of those cases where, like the depth and just the overwhelming factor is going to come into play.
I think an interesting thing about this series is Drummondville and Sherbrooke are only 53 minutes away according to Google Maps. And so, neither team's going to be tired in this series, right? Because your travel time is next to none. We're going to see the best hockey out of both of these teams to potentially, when Drummondville's healthy, they're one of the top teams in the league. And so I think we're going to get a really good series if this does end up happening.
And when we had Woodworth on in the interview, like he was mentioning about the Drummondville's barn. It's absolutely electric in there. I know it's tiny, but could pull off a few games in there.
It is a great barn. It feels like the crowd's like on top of you when you're there.
And buildings can swing that in your favor too.
Like, oh, absolutely.
Like it's a very underrated thing. Like when the Winnipeg Jets went on that run, I think it was 2018. Like the MTS is literally like 16,000. So like it's probably the loudest building in the NHL just because the roof is so low on it.
Yeah.
So like I think it could swing it.
And that's why we had that debate of having World Juniors, in junior hockey rinks. Like we saw it in Halifax. I went to a few games and like that place was loud. And you know why? Because the rink was small. And
Yeah.
10,000 people selling it out, I feel is better than having an 18,000 seat stadium and only selling 11,000 tickets.
Yeah.
Well, I remember during the World Juniors, so like you turn on that game and the friggin' like building would be melting down. It would be so loud, and then you flip over to an NHL game and it seemed like a morgue compared to it. Like,
Yeah, no, for sure.
TSN's cameras shook after goals.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Simply from crowd noise.
No, like it's insane, and I think junior hockey barns for that reason, like not only for the World Juniors, but like they play probably more of a factor than they do in the NHL. Like because outside of maybe like 4 or 5 buildings in the NHL, like you have the intimidating ones like TD Garden or like the Madhouse there in Chicago there a few years ago. But like I think these smaller buildings could swing it. If it's close, that is.
Yeah.
So we're all consensus on Sherbrooke, I take it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, next up.
Yeah.
Sean, I'll ask you first, Sean. So you had Shawinigan. They're going to play Gatineau. Who do you have?
Oh, do you delay?
Gatineau in 5. Again, hottest team in the queue, and I don't think you can go against that. And like I think it's just going to be a team that's just going to be so hard to stop. Again, peaking at the right time. So that one was pretty easy for me. And again, Shawinigan, I think that they're probably the weakest team that I had getting through. So I just don't think that they're going to stand much of a chance. But I hope they prove me wrong.
Theo, Gatineau or the Huskies?
I got Gatineau. Gatineau in 5. Just way too much of a powerhouse. Don't really need much of an explanation. Rouen's a little too young, and I think kind of the same scenario as Drummondville. I think next year they'll be a lot better, but yeah, Gatineau for sure.
Okay, I also had Gatineau. I think that's pretty consensus. Eastern Conference, Quebec will play Chicoutimi 1-4, and Halifax will play Moncton. So, Theo, Quebec or Chicoutimi?
Again, same kind of thing. Quebec, just way too much of a powerhouse. Yeah.
And Sean?
I got Quebec in 5. I don't know if we're doing like the 5, 6, 7, whatever now.
Well, it's all good.
Ultimately, I think Quebec.
Yeah, I just picked. But I also had Quebec. We'll say 5. And then Halifax, Moncton, Sean. Or sorry, Halifax, Moncton. Sean, you there?
Yep. Sorry, I think I dropped you there for a sec.
Nah, it's all good. Halifax, Moncton.
Halifax in 7. I think Moncton's a team that's played them very well. But it's the overwhelming factor, and I don't know. It's like I just think honestly, I think that this.
Sorry, Sean, you cut out there. Say that again.
You guys there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I think that this is very close to a toss-up. It's as close to a toss-up as it gets.
And Theo, Halifax, Moncton.
Yeah, I got Halifax in 7 as well. I know I've been tearing up Moncton earlier in the year, but they definitely proved me wrong. Just with Young Loshang, everybody on that team is from head to toes. They got awesome depth, and Moncton could steal some games from the goaltending. And plus, if like Rousseau gets hurt, I don't know, put Brady James in there. I don't think it's going to go very well for you. No offense, but yeah, I got mucked in 7 though. Sorry, Halifax is 7. Excuse me.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Sean was talking about how important barns are in junior hockey, and this is, other than Quebec, two of the biggest rinks in the league, and I would not be surprised if they both sold out almost every game.
Yeah.
So I think we'll really see atmosphere take place if this series happens.
Yeah.
And then round 3. So anyone at home doesn't know this, the first 2 rounds you reseed by
for
conference. And round 3, you reseed based on league standings. So based on that, you have Quebec number 1, Halifax number 2, Sherbrooke number 3, and Gatineau number 4, which would set up Quebec versus Gatineau. Theo, who do you have?
This is a tough one. I got Gatineau in 7. I think they got way more pieces. Don't get me wrong, Theo Rochette, all those guys, Gauthier, wonderful players, but I just think Kindy and them, even LaPena. I think LaPena is going to be the biggest X factor in this series, and I thought Gatineau was going to take him in 7.
Sean?
I actually have Quebec in 7. I think it's just a team top to bottom. And honestly, I do think that this one is very close, but I think the key for me is just going to be the depth down the middle that Quebec can have. And I know like the guys like Nathan Gosher and like those guys can play up and down the lineup, the guys like Bull Duck and everything. But like if they run into trouble, then what's to stop them from just saying, okay, each of you get to center your own line? And that on its own, I think, is going to cause problems, because being 4 lines deep, I think that that's probably the best asset that you can have right now. And like especially for Patrick Watt, he's going to have a game 7 at home if it goes to that point, and he could just play the matchup game if he wants. And I think that is a critical advantage.
Okay. And Sean, since you have the Halifax hat, will Halifax get by the Sherbrooke Phoenix?
Yes, but barely. I think very barely. I think it's going to be that one's going to come right down to the wire. I think it'll either end in 6 or 7, but I do think that the deciding game of the series is going to be a nail biter. Like every game in this series is going to be very close. And honestly, like I pretty much had to flip a coin on this one, if I'm being completely honest. So, but yeah. I do think Halifax does have a little more depth, and I think that little bit of extra depth can help put you over the top.
Okay, so that means I also picked Gatineau and Halifax for mine. So that means Theo and I have Gatineau versus Halifax in the finals, and Sean has Quebec and Halifax. Sean, who's your Gilles Coutreau champion?
Again, another toss-up, but I hate to go against Halifax here, but definitely Quebec. I think it remains almost too close to call at this point, but I think you have to give the advantage here to the team with home ice for game 7. And like I do think it comes down to goaltending somewhat. I think Russo might have an advantage there, but again, every single thing about this series is going to be like ridiculously close. And Halifax has won a lot of games this year by just simply outscoring you, and that's not going to work against Quebec. It's a team that both times Halifax played them this year, like it was super close, low scoring, low event, and I just don't think that benefits Halifax. It doesn't benefit the guys like Dumais. I think they're going to have to lean on a guy like Lawrence a lot more. But you're going to have to wait for your chances, and if you're not up to the task to play 2-1, 3-2 hockey games for 7 games, then I think you almost have to go with Quebec on that.
Theo, Gatineau or Halifax?
Yeah, kind of similar to what Sean was saying. Total toss up here, but I could be biased, but I got Halifax in 7. And yeah, big explanation is I think both power plays are absolutely nasty, and I think that could be the deciding factor. Who has less penalty minutes could win this series. Yeah, I got Halifax in 7.
So, like Sean said, mine was basically a coin flip. I might as well have pulled out a coin and just flipped one, but I'm going to say Gatineau takes out Halifax. This team, both teams are very, very similar. It's hard to say though. I mean, I think Gatineau was way better on defense until Noah Warren was announced out for the season. So I think now they're a lot more similar, but I still give the goaltending advantage to Gatineau with Frankie LaPena. Like, he's a playoff performer. We saw that last year when he took almost single-handedly took Charlottetown to the finals. And I think he'll get his championship this year.
Well, and I do think Gatineau would stack up. Like, for Halifax, that would be the more ideal matchup, stacking up against Gatineau, because those are the kinds of games that you can take and you can win the 6-5 hockey games. But against Quebec, like the only thing I worry about is guys like towards the bottom of the lineup. So like we're talking about like the Owen Phillips, the Logan Crosby's, Reese Peich, and just like the inexperience at the bottom of the lineup. Quebec is experienced top to bottom. And they have the coach with the NHL pedigree to show for that. So, like I just think when the moment gets big, I guess I just worry. I don't necessarily worry that they're going to shrink in the moment, but I do think that the experience comes at such a time that you don't shrink. They just step up and crush you.
Yeah. I think a big question mark for me around the Remparts is, can Justin Robida be better? I wouldn't say he's been what Quebec has wanted since he's come over. If he can step up, I can't see anyone stopping Quebec. I just picked Gatineau simply because that's assuming Robida plays the same way. He definitely has not been the game breaker that they trade it for. So I think that'll be a big factor in Quebec going. Last question I'm going to ask. Sean, you had the Remparts. Theo, you had the Mooseheads, and I had Gatineau. Sean, who is your playoff MVP?
I think it's going to be Zach Bolduc. I think he just finds ways to impact the game in so many different ways. And I just think he's going to be someone who I think he's going to score a big goal on multiple occasions. That's probably just a gut instinct for me, but he just comes across to me as the kind of guy who's going to find a way. Again, like I know I've mentioned this so many times on this show, just of grinding it and turning it into a bit of a grind and winning games 2-1. I think Bolduc's the kind of guy who can pull through in that moment to score a big goal and make it 2-1 with however much time on the clock. But I think he's the guy who really stands out to me to give them the best chance to win.
Theo, playoff MVP.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the obvious for Halifax, Jordan Dumais. Just had a terrific year, right behind Connor Bedard in points. Just I'm not a big guy, but he gets the job, and we'll see what happens in playoffs. And I know he doesn't have the most experience in the playoffs, but I think he could pull it off. And can goalies win MVP? Might be a scoop.
Oh
yeah,
oh, sure.
So if Gatineau wins, then I think LaPena could.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Now, I picked Gatineau, and I don't think Frankie LaPena is going to be their MVP.
Yeah, 10 acres.
Anaheim Ducks prospect Tristan Leno is going to be the playoff MVP.
Ooh.
Because, listen,
Spicy.
Noah Warren was just announced as out for the season, had surgery, which means Tristan Leno is going to have to play 25, 30 minutes a game. Easily.
Yeah.
Defense wins championships. In my opinion, you need good defense, good goaltending. They're going to get it out of Frankie LaPena. That's a given. And I think Leno is really going to step up. He's made to play those big minutes, and I think he's really going to shine. And he also leads the team in points, other than Kidney, mind you.
Yeah.
So,
well, kind of like I'm actually really glad you brought that up. I was thinking a lot about Luneau the other day, and how without Warren, he's been forced to absorb these really tough minutes, and it kind of reminds me of the Stanley Cup winning Blackhawks and Duncan Keith, and how every single time the moment got bigger, I think he had like that one game where he played like 38 minutes. Like, because every single time that, defensive zone dry, you're getting out there. Offensive zone dry, you're getting out there. The only time you're sitting on the bench is to give you a sip of water and a little bit of a breather. I think that they're going to have to lean on Luneau like that. But it's also not the same at this age because, like the turnaround for a young kid who's 18, 19 years old isn't the same for a guy who's in his 30s.
No. And you got to think about it. Leno, he's thriving right now under those big minutes. Like you said, he's been a big part of that huge winning streak. There was one point where he was on the Q team of the week 4 weeks in a row, which almost never happens. I think he was defense of the month like 3 times. So he's no joke. The Ducks got a good one in the second round.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think like just having that kind of guy and being able to like the kind of guy who doesn't necessarily need an extensive period of time sitting on the bench to sort of get recharged, but the ones who sort of thrive with those big minutes because like just sort of keep me going, don't let me sit because then it'll be harder to get back up kind of thing.
He loses the momentum for sure if he.
No, exactly. Well, and that's what I'm thinking, right? Like guys like him thrive when you keep the engine going. You can't shut it off because it's going to be that much harder to get it going again.
And I think what we haven't discussed yet is what we discussed last podcast of the Q banning fighting. I know the Q doesn't fight that much even before that, but I think the playoffs, if fighting happened, it could be the deciding factor with the fights, just with especially the visiting team, trying to get the boys going. I think the visiting team loses that factor.
Yeah, can't do that.
Nope.
Anything. So that does it. Sean has the Ramparts. Theo has the Mooseheads. I have the Olympique. Is there anything you guys would like to add?
Oh, that was great, boys. Thanks, Sean, for coming on. Appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me, guys. Anytime. I love chatting with you guys, and it's not often we get to sit down and talk about the playoffs. It's once a year, so like I'm definitely glad to come on and chat with you guys about it. But this is the first year we've actually gone back to like the actual like format, right? Because last year we had like those weird 3 of 5 series because of the condensed season.
We got real deal now. We are back. COVID is gone. We are in it. This is playoff season. Arrow, let's get fired up. Playoffs start Friday. That's it for this episode 22 QMJHL playoff preview with the Q review, brought to you by Barely's Heights of Blues and Ribs. Thanks to Sean for coming on. Follow us on all our socials, QReview_pod. And you can follow Sean's Twitter there as well, Shawnee_hockey. And that's it for me, for Theo. We will see you guys next week.